Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how to write the equations of an inverse given a particular function. Um, so I have 8 problems here. All present their own challenges, different operations, different radicals, different exponents, different things like that. But they all kind of have the same general first step. Um, so for each of these problems, for number one, we'll walk through it together. I like to always start by making it y equals x squared minus 5 because the first important step you have to know is I'm going to transpose the x and y coordinates. So I'm going to have now an x equals, excuse me here, x equals y squared minus 5. And now for the last part, now every problem's going to be a little different here. I just need to isolate the y variable. So after I transpose it, I'm going to add the 5 over to the other side. So I have an x plus 5 equals y squared. And the last step to isolate the y is I just need to take the square root of both sides. The inverse of the exponent 2 is just a square root or radical with the index of 2. The only thing you have to watch out for here is that I want to put a plus or minus. Anytime you have an even root, square root, fourth root, sixth root, we're going to put a plus or minus on the outside of that radical. There is no need for a plus or minus on any odd roots. Okay. So number two, so this will be your answer for number one. Number two, I start the same way. Y equals 4x cubed plus 1. I'm going to transpose the x and y coordinates. I'm now going to isolate the y by subtracting 1 to both sides. Okay. And now, before I take the cube root, you still have to isolate the y. So I'm going to divide this 4 over. There we go. Okay, so I have an, oops, hang on. Let's get my little eraser here. All right. And now I have an x minus 1 all over 4 is equal to y cubed. Now I'm going to use the radical. And I wouldn't use a square root. Instead, I would use a cube root. And the reason being is because we are working with an exponent of 3. So I would have to use a radical with an index of 3. Now, because that is an odd root or an odd index, I do not need a plus or minus. So therefore, that would be the inverse equation, just like that. Okay. Two more, very similar, starting with exponents. Okay, so number 3, I have y equals x minus 4 to the 4th. I'm going to transpose my x and y coordinates. I'm going to now, I can't add the 4. It's stuck in the parentheses. Those parentheses require me to kind of do things in a different order here. So I do want to get rid of this exponent. So I'm going to use the 4th root. So I have the 4th root of x. Now, because it is an even root, I have to put a plus or minus equals now a y minus 4. So I just took the 4th root of both sides, and that would end up canceling the exponent on the right-hand side of my equation. I still need to finish isolating the y, so I'm going to add the 4 over to the other side. Now, the one thing that you have to watch out for is I have plus or minus, excuse me, I'm going to rewrite that. That's pretty sloppy. I have the 4th root plus or minus x. Now, when I add the 4, that is on the outside. I never took the 4th root of that extra 4, bringing it over, so it's got to be on the outside. I like to write it at the end. And that is just equal to y. That would be my answer. Okay. Number 4, they start off the same way. Y equals x minus 1 to the 3rd plus 2. Transpose your x and your y variables. And now we just have the task of isolating the y. So I want to get rid of this extra term over here. Subtract that 2. Y minus 1 cubed. I can't add the 1 again. I'm going to have to get rid of that exponent. So I'm going to take a cube root of both sides. That gets rid of the exponent on the right. You do not need a plus or minus. It is an odd radical or an odd index. So the only last step I would have to do would be to add the 1. I have a cube root of x minus 2 plus 1 on the outside is equal to y. Okay? And that would be the inverse equation. All right? Now for the next 4 examples, instead of starting with something with an exponent, I'm going to start with an equation with a radical in it. Now, when we do this, we are going to follow the same steps. We're going to transpose x and y. We're still going to isolate the y. The only thing that you have to remember is to get rid of a radical, we're going to use an exponent. So it's kind of backwards from the first 4 problems. We were using radicals to get rid of exponents. Now we're going to use exponents to get rid of radicals. So if I write this as y equals 3 square root of x plus 5, I'm going to transpose my x and y variables just like before. And I still isolate just like before. So subtract the 5. So x minus 5 equals 3 square root of y. Second step would be to divide that 3. So now I have an x minus 5 all over 3 equals the square root of y. Now, to get rid of a square root, again, its inverse operation is just going to be the exponent of 2. So I get on the left-hand side here an x minus 5 all over 3 squared equals y. And this would be my inverse. Okay? Number 6, again, y equals the cube root of x minus 4 plus 2 transpose x. Oh, that would be a y. Let's make that a little neater here. Get rid of that. So I'm going to have a y minus 4 plus 2. Now we just need to isolate, so let's get rid of this extra term. So I have an x minus 2 equals the cube root of y minus 4. Now I can't add the 4, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to raise each side to the 3rd power to get rid of that radical. So that's going to leave me with an x minus 2 cubed equals a y minus 4. Add the 4 over. So I get now an x minus 2 cubed plus 4 equals y. And that would be my final answer. Okay, so that's the inverse of this equation. That's what happens when you transpose the x and y variables. Okay, last 2. Okay, same way. So y equals the square root of 2x plus 1 transpose x and y. All right. Now, I can't subtract the 1. I can't divide the 2 because they're all stuck inside this radical. So we need to get rid of that square root. So I'm going to square both sides. So now I get an x squared equals a 2y plus 1. Subtract the 1. I get an x squared minus 1 equals 2y. And then last but not least, divide the 2. Give myself some more room here. So I have an x squared minus 1 all over 2 equals y. That would be my inverse equation. Okay. And then last, I think you guys are getting the steps by now. So I write it as y equals 5th root of x minus 7. Okay. I'm going to transpose x and y. All right. I'm going to, now I have to isolate the y. So I got to get rid of this little extra term, this little minus 7. Let's get rid of that extra term over to the other side. So x plus 7 equals a 2 times the 5th root of y. I'm going to divide the 2 coefficient because it's not in the radical. And the inverse of a 5th root would just be using the 5th power. So what I do to one side, I do to the other. I'm going to say an x plus 7 all over 2 fifth is equal to y. And that would be my inverse equation. So I'm hoping you guys all learned something about how to write the inverse equation of a function. Ultimately, step one, just transpose, or to write it as y equals, transpose your x and y's, and then just isolate your y. And every problem is going to have different operations. So you just kind of have to take your time. If you have any questions, please send me an email. But there'll be a short exercise for you to do after this video. Thank you.